My name is Todd Haugland, Lead Sales Engineer and Certification Lead for the RMM platforms. I am joined by Robert Meehan, one of my sales engineers here in the United States. He will be handling questions on the back side here while I will be going on jabbering incessantly. Couple of housekeeping tips, as Robert was so nice to remind me. We are recording today's session. It will be posted on our YouTube channel by the end of the week. We have a very good AV team. They'll do a little cleanup for it, add chapters, yada yada, good things like that. In the GoToWebinar interface, if you have any questions, please type them in there so that Robert may address them while we are running. Okay, we're going to talk about a lot of things here, so I'm sure you'll have some questions, and that's why Robert's here today. So go ahead and take that. I'm going to go back and forth today, a little different than some of the tech series we've done in the past, where we usually have a presentation, then we do the demo, and then we do the questions. I'm going to kind of go back and forth today since we're going to be talking about multiple features within the RMM platform. So first and foremost, why are we going to implement? Why is everybody talking about layered security now? What we want to talk about today is how you can set up RM in, from a day-to-day down and dirty policy setting type of thing to implement these. But why do you want to do that? Well, it's really cool, right? These are really cool features. I can't believe the number of features that we now have in the platform. I've been here for quite a while, as you saw there, and when we started, we didn't have half of this stuff. And really, today is fantastic. You have so many features all in one place, under one roof, that you can go ahead and deploy out through the system at any time. Okay, once you deploy it, you pay for it. Once you turn it off, you stop paying for it. That's the magic, the beauty of the platform, and that's the way we give you flexibility to help your customers the way that they need to be helped. But do your customers care how cool your tools are? Probably not. What do they care about? That's right, that's what they care about. So when you're presenting some of this security platform, this security service that we want to wrap up, maybe we don't go right to the top and try to say, hey, we need to do this. Maybe we go to the person who is in charge of the finances. Our own Ian Trump wrote an article, and he talks about a couple of different things, including business email compromises. Those are one of the most prevalent and one of the most costly in the industry nowadays. As you can see, $246 million in 2015 alone, just based on an email scenario. So, for instance, one example he has in there, 17 million from an email that was supposedly from the CEO, and it wasn't. That's all. So we want to be able to help protect our customers from spoofing emails, for instance. We want to be able to protect them from malicious websites. We want to be able to protect them from broken software, old software. We want to protect them by showing them just how much their data is worth on their devices. Okay? So how do we do that? What are the things that the customer is going to be worried about? So we want to look at these things. Where are the threat vectors? Of course, there's themselves, what I call the PEBCAC error, right? Problem exists between keyboard and chair. But we also need to protect them from their software because end users don't know that they need to update Java or Adobe or Chrome or anything like that. So we want to protect them from there. We also want to protect them from scams, the business email scam that I just showed. Those types of things you want to be able to show how you can protect them with these tools. We also want to protect them from disaster. When all else fails, you better have backups, right? That final line of defense is going to be the backup. And all of that is what is contained within the RM platform now. What is that layered security? It's going beyond what we typically think of when we take care of a device, right? We want to apply specific things, specific features in the RM platform to go beyond just RMM, okay? Yes, we care about the health and well-being of the device. That's one step, but go beyond that, provide security for that device and for those that use them. Take care of the end user. What does this sound a whole lot like? This sounds like the MSSP, right? The Managed Security Service Provider. Everybody remembers who a Managed Security Service Provider is, right? Oh, that's right, we all are. If we provide any type of software or service that has any touch on the security of the systems, we are a Managed Security Service Provider. Have you ever installed AV? There it is. Okay, this is what we're talking about now. We need to know, and we need to know that we can do this, and we have all the tools capable of doing this for them. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is the RM platform, and I'm going to start from the device itself and kind of move outward with our feature set. Okay, that's what I mean from moving device outward, from the keyboard to the cloud, if you would. That just has a nice little ring to it. So I'm going to start with all of our features. And as I go through, I'm moving away from the device. So the patch management is probably that first device layer security that keeps the most common threat vector applications up to date. Okay, really easy way to secure the devices. Something like 80 to 85% of all threats can be avoided simply by patching software. Okay, and then of course we have our own risk intelligence. This is a vulnerability scanner as well, where we're defining that vulnerability though by liability. How much liability is represented by the data that's on any given device. We'll also talk about our managed antivirus. Okay, everybody knows managed antivirus, pretty simple sale, but here with our managed antivirus, we have it all integrated in here and manageable from one dashboard. We also have our mail protection. We can actually integrate mail protection right into the RM dashboard so that we can actually protect even before a threat gets to the device. And then of course, you have mail coming in, you also have web pages coming in, quote unquote. And so I can use web protection for reputation-based site blocking and filtering. And we have a couple of new features in there I think will be pretty interesting for people as well. And then of course, like I said, that last line of defense, manage online backup, where if all else fails or if I get hit by something anyway, I can actually go back and recover everything that's important to the customer. So starting at the top of that list, we talk about patch management. So a couple of different things we'll talk about here. We'll talk about the configuration of patch management and some of the recommendations that I'll make about using patch management here. Of course, you can see everything that we can do there. We have over 80 titles that we can update through our built-in patch manager, from Windows and Microsoft products to Java and web browsers. Very easy to deploy, and you can deploy at any time. Any and all of our features you can deploy at any time. And schedule out all the automated installation to any degree that you want. Do you want to touch every patch? Or do you want to automate every patch? Do you want to touch some Microsoft patches, or do you want to touch third-party patches? Anywhere in between, you can do that. Okay, so I'm going to flop over real quick to an actual dashboard. And so, everybody is familiar with this, and everybody knows that everything I'm talking about is going to be found here first on the settings menu, right? And with patch management, this is going to be one of only 2 features now, I think, that have one place to go to set up our policies and our deployment settings. So you're going into the settings selection here on the patch management menu, and what comes up is what we call our dashboard settings view. This is how or where things are getting deployed. With patch management, it's also going to be the configuration of the feature, and I'll explain what I mean by that when we look at some of the other features as well. But when I go into patch management, you can see all I have to do is I turn it on, and now this GSLC client here is going to have all of the devices there. In this case, I'm looking at server list, so all the servers are going to be scanned on a daily basis with what we call a vulnerability check. This is a different vulnerability check than we have with risk intelligence, but it's a vulnerability check on a daily basis at or about our daily safety check time, and we'll show you and alert you if there are any patches missing, or we can actually include more vulnerabilities, which are some of the same databases that we're all looking at for information about how a configuration on a machine might cause a vulnerability, like hidden shares or an open port or things such as that. And those can be included in the daily report also. Part of this, I can approve these automatically. Here's that flexibility. What do you want to have automatically set to install? We do that here with automatic approval. So if I automatically approve something that's missing, I won't even get an alert because I've already taken care of it. All right, I've already moved it out of a missing patch into the staging portion of the installation. And now you can see we have, if you haven't looked at this for a while, you've been around and you've seen that we can do this on a daily and a weekly basis. Hey, check this out. We can do it on a monthly schedule now as well. So we have that schedule where I can deploy on a certain time or day of the week. As you can see there where it says monthly schedule requires a newer agent, but the older agents still get deployed on a weekly basis. And this will automatically deploy anything that's already been approved. So I've got that set up. If I don't approve anything, this 11:45 at night doesn't mean anything. But I can go ahead and I can set that so that I take care of these machines automatically, and I can automatically reboot them if the software requires them. Now here's where I'm going to talk about a best recommendation. I'll do this with most all of our features. We have seen that a lot of newer softwares, if the user is still logged on or if the software is open, we're going to see some issues installing these patches. So recommendation we're making now with everyone is to go ahead and set an automated task prior to your installation schedule. So let's say 11:30 at night, you set all these servers on the second Thursday of the month to go ahead and reboot, and then this installation or remediation schedule will kick in, and we'll go ahead and we'll get those installed cleanly because we know now that there's no user in there, no applications are open, things like that. So part of the discussion that you're having with your customer, we still have to deal with the wetware, right? Part of that conversation is, I'm going to install software. And part of that is going to be rebooting machines, and so you have to make sure that they're either logged off, and we double check that by the automated task, or they close out everything. And if they don't, then you have actually already had that discussion with them about that. I've gone to the point also with this, after installing, go ahead and do a reboot there as well. Okay? If the patch or the new files are actually installed properly, still doing a reboot will clean up some of the chaff. All right, so always a good recommendation. I use the term recommendation and not the P word that everybody thinks that they should be hearing, because it's up to you. We all do business a little differently, and that's what we want to provide here, is a flexibility for you to do that. Okay. Now, of course, some people may say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shut down because he told me he's going to do stuff tonight, so I'll make sure nothing's open. Oops. Well, if that's the case, we don't currently have a built-in wake on LAN. So the thing that we can configure in here is to run that machine or run this remediation on that machine as soon as possible. Okay, so another part of that conversation that you're going to have with the client. And you can, if you want, because this is typically going to happen at the beginning of the workday the next day, right? You may want to exclude the reboot at that point. We'll give you that visual indicator underneath the reboot column, as you can see kind of in the background. If I move this a little bit, it's right above the X there, right? That reboot column will show you in the morning that devices need a reboot for whatever reason. So you can exclude that if you like. Finally, I will scroll down to the bottom and say that there is still the possibility that the patch install will fail. So you want to enable this feature here so that you get that either as an email alert or an SMS alert on servers, so that you can be aware that something needs your actual manual intervention for remediation there. The really cool thing, of course, with this is the GSLC client, for instance, even with all this configuration here, there's not a single device in here. And I can still do all this configuration. This is true of all our features, right? I can do this at any time. I can get this all set up prior to any agents being in my dashboard for that particular client. So I can go ahead and have it pre-staged and ready to rock as soon as I start putting agents on. All right. With our new policy-based stuff with our other features, I can create the policies too. So let's move on and let's talk about our next feature. Well, before I do that, I'm just going to reiterate what I was saying about patch management. Where I can do all those things, I want to make sure I said this, because I don't always say it when I'm on the dashboard. But there's that remediation where I want to put a reboot task in there beforehand and reboot after as a built-in, or what I call the semi-manual stuff, is I can actually do that through our workflow. And I did actually forget to talk about this. So before I go on to risk intelligence, I want to go back into this dashboard and I want to talk about the patch management workflow. Right? You see two other options on this menu: approval policy and management workflow. Approval policy, as the name implies, is this is where I can approve any missing patches. So I can do one step of the approval process to get these patches installed. With management workflow, this new view that we have here, I can take these and I can do two steps. Okay, the approval policy lets me do one step. I can approve it for install. Now I can approve these for install, proceed through, go ahead and approve it, or I can do any of these other options, of course, but typically I'm approving, and I can approve it wherever it needs to be across my entire dashboard or on just one client if I know that this happens to be on one client. But then I can go and I can override my automatic schedule if there is one. So two steps right in here. So highly recommend using management workflow to go ahead and help automate where you may not have automation already. Maybe you don't want automatic install scheduled. You want to be able to call up and say, okay, this weekend, this Saturday, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do patches because there hasn't been patches for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something like that. So I can now override in a new schedule and go ahead and install that according to that new schedule right there. All of the options that I get in my policy that I saw in the patch management settings view, but for a particular patch or set of patches. Okay, so very, very cool way to do things, easy way to get these things deployed in that semi-automatic or semi-manual fashion. So let me move on to risk intelligence. And I do risk intelligence here because we use the term vulnerability for both of these, both patch management and risk intelligence. The risk intelligence, while it is a device layer of defense, it is also a user layer of defense. With a patented scanning algorithm, we can go ahead and scan the devices and the data on those devices looking for liabilities, those types of vulnerabilities. Okay, we can find and expose at least the fact that it exists, sensitive data, so that we can minimize exposure on that device. Things like credit cards, birthdays, ID cards, whether it be like social security numbers in the US, social SSA, I believe it is in Canada, and other critical or sensitive data that might exist in a Word document, an Excel document, sitting in the recycle bin, all those types of things, because those actually do present a vulnerability on that particular device if it is lost or breached. Okay. We also include a security scan and risk intelligence. So if you don't go full-blown patch management with a client, you can turn on the risk intelligence security scan, and you get about the same thing. It's doing that same comparison, same data, internet databases to see what vulnerabilities from a program or file perspective are on that particular device. So let me flip back over here and again, and I can show you again that little difference when I go into the risk intelligence menu. You see there are now two selections here, settings that we saw with patch management, but now I see one for policy. Okay, and this is where we're going with all of our features. We'll have a policy that we can preset, we can pre-configure according to what that feature requires or what a particular customer may require. And then we can do the deployment through the settings view whenever we have made the sale, wherever we need to make the change, wherever we need to add or remove, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so this is going to be something that we're going to do policy first. Okay, with risk intelligence, we're probably going to have a short number of policies here because they're pretty consistent what we're looking for regardless of the vertical that your customer may be in. So you can see here I've got a couple of new ones. Everyone's going to have these defaults in there, but I've only put in a data breach scan for workstations and a security and data breach in another, but maybe I want to do credit card, what we in the US call PCI. So I want to do credit card scans, and that's primarily going to be on desktop. So I'm going to create a policy from an existing one, as you can see here, and now I get all of my policy settings so I can configure this. All right, so here you can see my security scan, and since this is populated from another one that I've started building it from, it's already populated. So my security scan is, as I was saying, is similar to our daily vulnerability check and patch management. So you can put it in here as a double check against patch management, or you can do it on its own without patch management and get that information where you can have a nice report to show people how stupid they're being by not updating their software. And you can run it, as we can see here, on a daily basis. We're running at 9:30. Again, we can run it if the machine happens to be off at 9:30. We can run it later. The security scan is very, very quick, very, very lightweight, particularly after the initial scan, because we do incremental scans after the initial one. Any files that have changed, things that have changed, are the ones that get scanned after that. PCI scan, this is the one that I'm looking specifically for credit card data, Visa, MasterCard, and American Express, etc. Okay, so this is one that's configured for PCI regulations particularly, excuse me. And you can see here I've got this set for once a day also, and once a day may be a little bit too much. Maybe I want to cut that down just to kind of space it out a little bit from the security scan. Maybe I don't need to even try to schedule this on Saturday and Sunday because I know the machines will be off or something like that. But I want to have this one run at least once a week to make sure that the people aren't saving credit card data in the wrong place. And so, of course, I want to do that is early as possible. So let me see, I want to do that at 9:45. And in this one, I don't even want to do a data breach. So I'm just going to turn that off and I'm going to save that right there. Oh, wait, best recommendation time. As you can see here on the screen, we cannot save this because my scan schedules are too close to one another. Our recommendation out of the box is 2 hours between scans. We're running the same executable, for any of these scans. That's the issue. We can only run executable one at a time. So we want to space these out a little bit, and out of the box it won't allow you to do less than 2 hours. So I need to move this to a time that's much better. So I can either move that later into the day, or really what we're starting to see is a good thing to do is let's just go ahead and not have scans scheduled, more than one scan scheduled on the same day. Okay, so if I can't do it on Saturday, I'll do this on Friday, but I'm going to disable the Friday scan and security, and now I can do this actually at 9:30 in the morning if I want to. It's just going to be a different scan, okay, because now I'm 24 hours apart. All right. We have seen the PCI scan or the data breach scan take longer than 2 hours. This is why we make this recommendation. It's all going to be dependent on the amount of data that's on the machine. Okay, if you have a lot of data, if it's a server, this could take a very long time, and so you want to make sure that it doesn't interrupt or run into any of your other scan time. Okay, and now I can go ahead and I can save that, and you're going to see this pop up in my policy list. Pardon me. So that we have a new policy that we can add to the desktops on our dashboard. And here you can see where is this being used. Is, we have a few machines in this little dashboard that it's being added to. And there I go into my settings, and voila, this is the same settings view that we were looking at in patch management, but now we make it a little easier because underneath here I'm just looking at selecting the particular policy for those particular machines at that particular site. Typically, we see that this is going to be a per client setting. Okay, I've got it set here on one singular site because I have one singular site that has actual physical machines that people interact with. The other machines are virtual and typically don't have people interacting with them so much, so I don't even bother there. But typically from our customer standpoint, they're a little different than what I do on a day-to-day basis. They're just turning it on at customer level where it goes down into all the sites as well. And now I can go ahead and I can set up the credit card scan, and you can see because that was a desktop policy, it's not showing up in the laptops, right? So I can do other scans on the laptops. Maybe I want to look at data breach, do data breach scans on laptops because they are more likely to go out into the world where they might get lost, and therefore that monetary figure is really important on there, whereas desktops are just running credit cards through them. We want to make sure that they are all encrypted. Now it's set, as we saw before, GSLC doesn't have anything, but as soon as desktops and laptops come in, they're going to go ahead and have those scans automatically deployed to them. And where you're going to see those is actually right now in our task list. Okay, so you can see on this particular machine, I've got the data breach scan, the PCI scan, and a security scan running here, and I can tell you right here that this 5102 error is because, hey, they were trying to run at the same time. Okay, I had run as soon as possible set on these scans because you can see my schedule scan is at very different times. But I know that these two ended up running at the same time, and so therefore stepped on one another and couldn't complete. Okay, so what I want to do is I can go ahead and I'm going to run data breach scan on that. Thank you very much, and we'll let that one run without interfering with the PCI scan. Okay, so one thing just to remember that these scans, as I said, the security scan, the PCI scan, and the data breach scan all run the same program with different parameters on them, and so they all have to run. They have to run at different times, and then they'll run actually incrementally. We will maintain what we scanned previously so that we don't have to scan it again if nothing has changed. So your data breach scan, as I said, can be very long because of the amount of files on a machine, if there's a lot of files. PCI similarly, because that's what we're looking at. So possibly you want to run those first, especially on a weekend or whatever the particular customer's weekend may be, so that they're not interrupting work and not interrupting any subsequent scans that are happening on the device. So next, our managed antivirus. This is kind of that user layer defense. This is typically the MSSP's first sale, right? Because everybody understands AV. Everybody understands what antivirus is doing, okay? Very, very simple to set up, or very, very simple to sell, very, very simple to use in the dashboard, okay? We are currently using an engine based on Bitdefender. So we are looking at different engines as well. If you have your favorite, please let us know. But we find that the Bitdefender engine has the best balance of scanning capability, including heuristic-based scanning with real-time monitoring, as well as keeping a little lightweight for the quick scans and even the deep scans. Policies are scheduled the same way. We configure a protection policy in Managed Antivirus, and we deploy it out the same way as we just saw with Risk Intelligence. Okay. The only recommendations that I typically make here is one, it's going to be again, it's going to be a per client policy is probably the way you're going to set it up. Not every client is the same, so you're going to have different exclusions and different scanning times and those types of things. We want to make sure that all our scans, quick or deep scans, are scheduled outside of their business hours. So you're going to have somebody who works 9 to 6 instead of 8 to 5, and therefore you want to set up their schedule slightly differently than the other client. Okay. MAV alerts, there are a couple of different alerts that we do. One is whether the definitions are up to date, and then another is going to be what the Bitdefender engine finds. We find a threat, and we're going to report in whether there's a threat. That alert or that check also will tell you if a deep scan hasn't been run in a while. And this is one thing that I always recommend that people take a look at that. And let me switch over and take a look at a policy so you see what I'm talking about. I go into my Managed Antivirus policies, and let me just jump into a random one here, because we want to make sure that this number right here under the scanning options, 30 days is a little long, but I don't like to look at my computers much. This alert is based on the deep scan schedule, not the quick scan schedule. It's important to note because people say, oh, I run a quick scan every single day, and yet it alerts me at the end of the week because I have a deep scan scheduled for every Saturday, and yet I have the scanning set for 6 days. Well, yeah, you have it configured for more than 6 days, so we're going to alert you every time that happens. So make sure that you have these two settings, this schedule here and the scanning alert, working together properly, so you're not getting just a bunch of noise because of your timing on the settings. Okay, so wanted to talk about mail protection because not many people know that they can actually manage all of their mail protection clients right in the dashboard. Their same RM dashboard that they use every day for everything else. This is a very, very simple, if you're not familiar with mail protection, It's a robust DNS-based setup against spam and viruses in the cloud. So we have multiple AV engines scanning everything. We can have built-in continuity. So if a particular mail server stops responding or is not reachable, we're automatically bagging that mail before even finding out that the email server is offline. Right? So we also have built-in archiving. If you want to have an archive for regulatory purposes, things like that, we can archive that for you as well. So recommendation that I want to make here is go ahead and get this configured in your dashboard, because I can go ahead and I can add in a new service, and the first one you select where you want it, and then what service is it you want. Max Mail is right there, and you can create that account. And before I go ahead and do that, I'm just going to go ahead and show you that I do actually have Max Mail Protection already set up with 13 users. So this is what it's going to look like right here in the dashboard. I can go ahead and I can add this in. I can edit this service. I can synchronize it with the on-premise Exchange server and Active Directory if I need, so that I can populate the mailboxes here in Mail Protection right from the server itself without any intervention. Okay. Then I'll be able to also from here not only be able to look into particular clients or particular mailboxes and edit those mailboxes as needed, but I can get the all-important alerts out of this service. Okay. I need to know when mail is having delivery issues. Has the mail server gone down? Has the internet service gone down? So either way, they're no longer getting their mail. Okay, this is where you're going to get alerts out of Mail Protection, is actually integrating it into RM. We want to give you that single pane of glass. All right. So we can get this information right here, and then in the Mail Protection service itself, we can get the protection that we need from those BECs, those mail scams, those malicious emails, those phishing attacks and things such as that come through. All right, so the next user layer of defense is web protection. So now I can protect anything that may be, either advertently or inadvertently emailed to me. What about the end user clicking on something from a particular website or an email that might have gotten through because they don't yet have mail protection? Let's protect them with web protection, threat protection, where I can just turn on security. I can also see how much they're using with bandwidth monitoring. I can also configure very fine-tune blacklists, whitelists, categorizations, allow time-based browsing. So if you want to let them go ahead and watch YouTube over lunch, you can do that. We can set all that up right here in one view and be able to show them where their issues are, where their issues may not be. So first thing I want to make a recommendation on from a configuration standpoint is the web security aspect of this. Let me show you what I'm talking about by flipping back over to our dashboard. Let's go pull up devices. And we look at the web protection policies here. So I'm going to pull up my favorite one, where I keep my 13-year-old from doing anything bad to himself. And when we look at this, what I'm talking about is this particular tab right here, this web security tab. To be quite honest, there is no reason to have any of these sites ever be allowed to get in, okay, unless you have a very weird customer. So this is where you can make the inroads on the sale. If you've never talked to a customer about personnel policies and what they are allowed to do or not to do, or Most small companies, dentist offices, things like that, they're not so worried about it because they know that Alice and Jim, they're going to look at their Facebook page in the afternoon, but they only do it for a half an hour in between appointments. Once they start getting larger and they don't know Alice and Jim so well anymore, that's when they start having to talk about category filters. But if you don't have to worry about that, at least push the security feature here. Just protect them from doing something inadvertently. So we can turn this on. Now I've got that protected. I'm not talking personnel policies. I'm not talking gray areas. I'm not talking about, all the wetware issues that go along with that. One other thing that we want to take a look at here in our policies is a new feature. If you're looking closely there at the middle of this screen, web protection is a reputation-based categorization filter. And by default, we have a categorization scale here for high-risk sites, for suspicious sites, and then moderate risk, low risk, and trustworthy sites. So we're going anywhere from 0 to 100 here, right? Okay. If I want to block absolutely everything, I put that all the way out there, and now I'm going to block those because they're even a trustworthy site is falling below my threshold. But as you saw before I started, and we have it set at 39. Any high risk or suspicious sites are typically going to be blocked. Okay. And so if I want to, if I'm having any kind of false positives, I can slide this down a little bit because that's typically what we're seeing is this number as indicated on the block page is falling slightly below what our threshold is. And now I can adjust that in order to make sure that things are going through. Okay. So new feature that we've got in there for you where you can add that in, be able to fine-tune what you allow your customers to go to and so that they get the best usage out of the web protection feature. Of course, if you're just getting your foot in the door or if you're having that discussion about personnel policies and things such as that, you can turn on web protection into a report-only mode, and you can see that all features are disabled when I select this. So I'm not configuring anything. I just want the end user to know what type of traffic they're seeing across their devices. Right? So this is going to preclude and spur new conversation with that client so that I can find out, or they can find out, what their employees are doing, whether it's appropriate or not, or whether we're having any issues or not as well. One thing I did not show in there, and I really want to make sure because the last time I talked about web protection, I forgot it as well, but any device now that does have web protection enabled on it, if there is a site that they just simply need to get to just today, just for one period of time, I can actually right-click on that device, go to its web protection settings, and snooze that for, you see the default is going to be 15 minutes that we fill it in, but you can go all the way up to an hour and basically turn off web protection on that device. Now they can go ahead and go past the block page and get to that device. It's going to be a real-time application. So right now they can go ahead and refresh that page and they'll actually get to it. And they'll be able to do that for about an hour. This is currently, as you can see, in the dashboard, and we are working towards getting it as an option on the system tray icon on the endpoint as well. Okay, so last layer of defense, managed online backup. Cloud-based option with a free option to turn on what we call local speed vault for your on-site. Local speed vault, highly recommended, just makes your recovery that much faster because you'll be pulling from that. It's typically going to be faster than pulling from the cloud. All incremental backups are true delta. We call it delta and deduplication. Say that 5 times fast because I can't. So that all of the subsequent backups are going to be that much faster and that much smaller as well. We do support everything, of course, that's out there, Microsoft SQL, Microsoft Exchange, SharePoint, all built in natively and using the native VSS writers, plus allow you to do Oracle, VMware, etc. Everything's encrypted, both at rest and in motion. Say that specifically because of regulatory compliance, correct? So we have all of this there for you, but quite honestly, I think the best thing about this is I can turn this on in the settings view on workstations and with a single click protect those endpoints from ever being hit by ransomware. Because our settings by default, if I flip back over, this is one that's very much like the patch management still. If I go to manage online, you see there's no policies at this point. So I'm doing the policy editing right here in the settings. But if I go into a client and just simply turn it on, I am already set to protect everything that is actually meaningful on a desktop or a laptop. All right. A built-in variable for us, which is profiles, which is the C:/users folder or whatever that particular profile is. So if 3 more people come onto that machine or log on to that machine after I've configured manage online backup, their data is already protected. It's already set up for daily. We don't have to worry about the grandfather, father, son for you old guys like me. We automatically go ahead and do incrementals on a daily basis because that's just going to make the most sense. All my backups are going to be smaller. I'm going to have more versions of them that I can recover from. And here we can also do bandwidth throttling. So if you don't want to interrupt bandwidth during the day, things like that, you can take care of that also. Here's where you set up that local speed vault. This can be a local drive to the devices. Say you set up every computer that you set up for this customer has 2 hard drives in it. And so the second hard drive is going to be a backup, so you can make that. Or you can put in if I activate the field, a UNC path. So I have a NAS on site where I put all this stuff. And you can see now it's prompting me for a login to that NAS so I don't have to worry about doing it on the local device as well. All that taken care of right in this single pane of glass that we call the RMM dashboard. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about this because layered security isn't as much about the tech as it is about protecting your customers and making sure that they understand this. Okay? So how do you sell it? How do you get it to them? Yeah, the first and foremost, you're going to leverage that fear, that uncertainty and doubt. They hear the stories about Target. They hear the stories about ransomware. Go ahead and use that. As I was saying at the beginning, let's talk about the money. How much will this cost if they lose that data? Okay, let's talk to the guy that writes the checks. Let's talk to the guy that is actually watching how much money that the overhead is. So that may not be the head honcho, that may be the accountant or the CFO if they have one. So talk to them about this and appeal to that side of the equation and say, hey, I can run this risk intelligence scan and show you just how much is sitting on each one of these devices. So do that as a way of getting your foot in the door. Do the security scan so you can see just how out of date their software is. Do the data breach scan so you can see how many times they have dates of birth in there or social security numbers, etc., and how much that's actually going to cost them from a risk perspective and liability perspective. Do put this together as a bundle. Always say that. I keep saying the term, get your foot in the door with manage antivirus, things like that, but try to put it together as a bundle. It makes it more effective as a tool, not only to sell, but for your customer. There are multiple threat vectors to their devices now. It's not just protecting them with antivirus. So you want to appeal to that and say, we need to put this in here to protect them from the users themselves. We want to protect the devices and the software, etc. So now you may not see, this is going to be 2 things. They may not bite off on everything, so you can pull this apart a little bit if you want, but you'll also see that they're more likely to jump at security offerings than they are for just health and well-being, right? Computers are cheap enough nowadays that if a computer fails, for the most part, they may not be as worried about it. But if their data leaks into the wrong hands, they're really going to be worried about that. So always remember that you are that managed security service provider already. Go ahead and put this together as a package for your clients and put it on your masthead. Go ahead and make the most of it. All right. One last thing I want to touch on if I can, because I thought I would have time to touch on it, but Logic Cards is actually part of a security offering because of the large amount of data that we can leverage for you on your behalf for your customers. Things like removing software that's out there. How do you know where that might be? Do you want to go and do the legwork about removing QuickTime on these machines, or do you just want us to tell you about it? All right, so this is something that you can use and you can leverage to go ahead and be proactive even before you may see an issue in your dashboard and be able to take care of those issues before any one of your customers is ever even affected. So huge, big data information for small to medium-sized businesses. We think it's one of the best things in the world. We really do. Now, I've left Bob lots and lots of time here for questions and answers. Sorry about that, Bob. I'm going a little long today. Do we have anything that we want to share with the group?
Well, you know what, Todd? We're in luck. We actually have had very few questions. It looks like you covered the material very well. And I just...
Hey, you know, even a blind squirrel gets a nut.
No, you did a great job covering it. The questions were light and few. So
all right.
I would say we're available.
Okay, well, let me go ahead and let's, I'll show this one thing, a couple of resources to use after this. As I said, today's session is recorded, so if you want to show it to anyone else or come back and rehash something, it'll be up there by the end of the week, I'm sure. But you can also follow us at a variety of URLs here. And Robert, if you do me a favor, if you paste some of these URLs into the chat window, that'd be great so that they can go ahead and click on them. As I say, our status updates, anything that we do here at SolarWinds MSP is found on status.solarwindsmsp.com. If you need support for your products, that's at support.logicnow.com right now. Okay, and I'm told by the end of the month it might be changing to a SolarWinds MSP domain. And our community. I often go out and visit you guys near your neighborhoods, and you'll find out about those types of things at connect.maxfocus.com. And finally, I alluded to our own Ian Trump's article. It is found over at Huffington Post. If you want to read up on that or anything else that Ian is writing, you'll find three articles that he's already posted over there. And there's the one that I was referring to today. So with that, I want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy day. I know you have a lot to do, so I'm going to go ahead and let you get back to it. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions further, please reach out to us here. We are here to help because when we all get better, we all get better together. Thank you very much. Have a great day.